Hello students, in last lecture we have seen what is meant by deadlock and what are necessary conditions deadlock in which deadlock can occur. Okay. There are four necessary conditions for deadlock. So, and today we will see deadlock handling methods. Okay. Before that, we will revise the concepts in short. Deadlock is a situation in which the system goes into waiting state forever. No process will get executed. That means all the processes are occupying some of the resources and they are waiting for some other resources which are occupied by other processes. Such situation in which all the processes are going in waiting state and system will not be working anymore, that condition, that situation is nothing but deadlock. Now, why this deadlock is occurring? Because of four necessary conditions that are there in the system. Which are those? One, mutual, we have seen those conditions lastly. Mutual exclusion. That means all the resources present in the system are exclusively given to the process. They are not given in shared way. All the processes can hold the resources while they are waiting for the other resources from other processes. No preemption. That means we cannot forcefully stop the execution of any of the process in circular way. That means processes are waiting for the resources pulled by other processes and thus they are forming a circle of waiting in between them and it leads to the deadlock. Okay. So we have seen these conditions and what is meant by deadlock. Now because of deadlock, the system is suffering from the problem of less performance, which is the most important problem to be handled. If the performance of the system is less, then there is no use of resources and so many things available in the system. So we need to handle this deadlock. How to handle the deadlock? There are three different methods. One is deadlock prevention, deadlock avoidance, and deadlock detection and recovery. Okay. So these three methods are. So first method is deadlock prevention. What is deadlock prevention? We always say prevention is better than cure. That means we will not allow the deadlock to come into the system. Okay, we will prevent the deadlock. How? That we will see. Deadlock prevention means preventing any of the four necessary conditions which will come in the system. Okay. So which are four necessary conditions for deadlock to occur? Mutual exclusion, hold and wait, no preemption, and circular. So, if all these four conditions are true, then there are chances of deadlock. If we make any of these four conditions, any one out of these four conditions as false, the deadlock will not be there. Okay. So, deadlock prevention means make any of the four conditions as any one out of four conditions as a false. But because of making this condition false, there are some side effects of this. That is, the resources are utilized less and the system's throughput will be reduced. We have discussed what is meant by throughput. What is throughput? Throughput is nothing but number of processes executed per unit time by that system. So this is also reduced if we make the condition false, any one condition false. Okay. This is deadlock prevention. The second approach is deadlock avoidance. To avoid the deadlock, what we need to do? We can do two things. One is we will not start the process whose demands will lead to the deadlock. That means suppose we have only three resources available with us and some newly created process requires four resources. So we will not allow that newly created process to start its execution because anyways it is not going to be completed with available number of resources with the system. one thing. Another thing we can do is, if already started process needs some more resources, and that need, that additional need of that process leads to the deadlock, then what we will do, we will stop that process, or we will not allocate any of new resource to that particular process. Okay. Now, how to do this actually is, we will have the safe state. What is safe state? It is a state or situation arised in the system in which all the processes can be executed completely if the processes follows some sequence. Okay. So safe state is nothing but the state of the system in which all the processes can be executed to its completion. Okay. And unsafe state is the one in which all the processes cannot be completed. Okay. Now you can observe in this diagram that all the processes, all the state, if the system is in the safe state, there are no chances of deadlock. If the system is in unsafe state, there might be the deadlock. That is, it is not compulsory that if the system is in unsafe state, there is a deadlock. It is not compulsory, but there are chances that system may lead to the deadlock if it is in unsafe state. Okay, clear with this? Now, proceeding towards the algorithm which is used for deadlock avoidance. The algorithm is known as Banker's algorithm, and it needs some data structures to work properly. That algorithm. Okay, so we will see those four data structures. One is available matrix. Second is maximum matrix. Third is allocation matrix. Fourth is need matrix. So in available, all available instances of each type of resources will be there. Max will be maximum demand of each process regarding resources will be there in that matrix. Allocation means currently how many instances of each resource are allocated to each process. That information is given in the form of matrix known as allocation matrix, and need is a matrix which can be calculated as max minus allocation. Okay. Now, so Banker's algorithm. We will see this Banker's algorithm two times. One before example, one after example. Okay. So it works in 4 steps. In first step, we do all the initializations. That is number of processes, number of resources, available matrix, and all the processes are yet to complete. To show that, we will do finish of I. That means all I processes are false. That means they have not finished their execution. So this way, we will initialize. We will do the initialization in the step 1. In step 2, what we will do, we will identify a process I, that means P of I, such that both the conditions are true. This is and, this is not or. Condition A and condition B is true, then only we go to the step 4. Sorry, we go to the step 3. Otherwise, if any of the condition out of condition A and B is false, we directly switch to the condition step number 4. Okay. Now, what is there in condition A? If finish of I is equal to false, that means process has not completed its execution yet. If need of I is less than available, that means whatever is the number of resources needed by particular process now, that need is less than whatever available resources are there in the system. That means need can be satisfied for that particular process. So if both the conditions are true, that means process has not yet completed its execution and its need can be satisfied in the available number of resources, then we will allow that process peak I to execute. Okay. So after execution, what process will do? For execution, it will take some resources from available and it will release all those resources after execution. So while releasing, it releases all the resources which are already there with it previously and it has taken from available. So after execution is over, what P of I will do? It will update the available matrix. How the available matrix will be updated? Available is equal to previous value of available plus allocation. Allocation means whatever resources are there with the process P of I. Okay, so all those resources it will release and they will be added to available resources. And then finish of I is made as true, indicating that its execution is over. Then again, control will be transferred to step 2. We will identify such process whose execution is not done yet and whose need can be satisfied with the available and it will be executed. It will update the available matrix. It will change its status of execution as true and so on. This happens till we will not find any such process whose execution is not yet done and whose need can be satisfied. Okay. If we have found no such I for which condition A and B is any of the condition out of A and B is true, then we will go to the step number 4 and we will check for whether finish of I for each process is true or not. If finish of I for each process is true, then we say the system is in safe state. That means there is no chance of deadlock to occur. This way, we will first check whether the system is in safe state or not. If the system is there in the safe state, then we will allow the number of processes present in that system to execute. Otherwise, if system is not there in the safe state, by considering that it may lead to the deadlock, we will do some corrective action so that we can avoid the deadlock situation. So this way, the banker's algorithm can be used for deadlock avoidance. This is the example. Now, what is they given in the example? Find the safe sequence for following maximum number of resources of R1 type is equal to 4 and R2 type is equal to 4. Now, with this, they have also given allocation status and maximum requirement for the processes present in the system. There are 3 processes present in the system, that is P1, P2 and P3. So this is P1, P2 and P3. These 3 processes are there. R1 and R2 are the types of resources and the number of instances available for R1 are 4. Number of instances available for R2 are also 4. Out of these 4 instances from R1, 1 is given to P1, 1 is given to P2 and 1 is given to P3. That means out of these 4 instances of R1 type, 3 are given to P1, P2, P3 and only 1 instance is available and that is reflected here in the available matrix. Okay. Out of these 4 instances of R2 type, 0 instance is given to P1, 1 instance is given to P2 and 2 instances are given to P3. That means total 3 instances are given amongst P1, P2 and P3 and now out of 4, if 3 are given, that means only one instance of resource type R2 is available. So that information is stored in the available matrix. So maximum number of available instances is given. How allocation is done in between the processes, that is also given. And also what is the maximum requirement for each process is also given to us. And we have to find out the safe sequence. So what is the maximum requirement of P1? P1 is already occupying the 1 instance of R1 and 0 instance of R2, right? It needs one more instance of R1 and it needs maximum 1 instance of R1 and 1 instance of R2. Out of this maximum requirement, it already have this right? So what is more need of process P1? That is, what are more number of resources apart from what is allocated here to the process P1? That we will find out. How the need matrix will be calculated, that we have seen in the last PPT. That is, need can be calculated as max minus allocation. So max is 1 and 1 of R1 R2 type. Allocation is 1 and 0. So what is the need? Need is equal to 1 1 minus 1 0, that is 0 1. That means 0 number of resources of R1 type are needed and 1 number of resources of R2 type are needed by process P1. Okay. Now, if its need can be satisfied by whatever is available, we have seen in the step 2 of algorithm. If two conditions are true, that is process has not yet completed its execution. Yes, P1 is not yet completed its execution. Second condition is need of P1 is 0, 1. That means 0 resource of R1 type and 1 resource of R2 type. Need is less than available. Yes, it is less than available. So that's why P1 can be executed and it will execute. So what P1 will do, it is already having 1 resource of R1. It takes from available matrix 1 more resource of R2 type. So that resource will be taken and its need is satisfied. It will execute and it will release all the resources again back to the available. Now, after completion of P1, which has already taken R2 and again released the R1 and R2, after completion of process P1, what is the status of P1? It is not allocated with any of the resource and its need is 0 now. Its maximum requirement is 0 now because it has completed its execution and the available matrix is changed. What is the change done in available matrix? Previous value of available minus whatever is the allocated to P1. So all those are added here in the available. Then now we have P2 and P3 which can be executed. Out of this P2 and P3, whose need can be satisfied? Need of P2 is maximum minus allocation. That is 2 3 minus 1 1 means 1 2 1 2. So it needs 1 resource of R1 type. R1 is having 2 resources in available matrix and 2 resources of R2 type. So this 2 resources of R2 type are not there in the available. So for P2, first condition is true, that is its execution is not yet done, but second condition is false, that is its need is more than whatever is available because it needs 2 instances of R2 type and there are only 1 instance of R2 type of resource present in the available matrix. Okay, that's why P2 cannot be executed. So what we will do, we will check for whether the P3 can execute. For P3, it needs maximum 2, 2 resources of R1 and R2 type and it has 1, 2 resources. That means it requires 1 more resource of R1 type and it is there in the available matrix. For R2, it is not requiring any kind of resource of type R. So only 1 resource of R1 type is needed and it is there in the available matrix. It will be given to the process P3 and after completion, process P3 will release all the resources which are there in its allocated matrix and which are taken by it from the available matrix. So all those resources used by P3 will be released and they will be added to the available matrix and hence available matrix will be modified as 2 plus 1 is equal to 3 and 1 plus 2 is equal to 3. That means there are 3 resources of R1 type and 3 resources of R2 type are there in the available matrix now. Now, the only one process is not executed yet, that is process P2. Now we will check whether its need can be satisfied with whatever is available in the available matrix. P2 needs 2 and 3 number of resources of R1 and R2 type respectively, and there are only one resource of each type available in its allocation matrix. So what is its need is 2 3 minus 1 1 is 1 2, and are we having that much need can be satisfied from the resources present in the available matrix? Yes, its need is 1 and 2, and in available we have 3 and 3 at resources present. So P2 can be executed now, and it will execute by taking the resources from available matrix, and it will release all the resources which are taken from available matrix and which are already there in its allocated matrix, and all those released resources will be added in the available resources. Now the available matrix is updated as 4 4. That means all the resources of R1 type are there in the available, and all the resources of R2 type, that is 4 number of resources of each type, are available here, because we have completed all the processes, execution of all the processes. We can identify the safe sequence. How we will be able to execute all the processes up to their completion. If we follow the sequence P1, P3 and P2, then only processes can be executed to its completion. Otherwise, there may be problem. Like if we execute in the sequence as P1, P2, P3, then P2 cannot be executed, and hence P3 may not be executed, and system goes into deadlock. So this way we will be able to identify the safe sequence in which if processes will be executed in that sequence, the system may get the relief from deadlock. It will not be there in the unsafe state. Okay, clear with this? So what is the Banker's algorithm? Banker's algorithm is the algorithm which gives us the safe sequence in which if the processes are executed, then the system will not go in the deadlock state. Okay. It is another example having little bit more number of resources, more number of instances, more number of processes, but the conceptually it is similar to that of the previous example. You can refer this example from my notes, and we will get that the safe sequence present in that situation is P2, P1, P3 and P4, and if the processes are executed in this sequence, then the system will lead to the will not lead to the deadlock. It means that if we execute the processes in above sequence, then all the processes will be completed, will be executed completely. Otherwise, system may lead to the deadlock. One important note regarding the safe sequence, that is, there can be more than one safe sequences present in the system for same number of resources in the same situation. So that means Banker's algorithm gives us one of the safe sequence. That doesn't mean this is the only sequence by which the deadlock will be avoided. There you may get another sequence also, but the sequence given by Banker's algorithm is the one in which you can say definitely there will not be any deadlock. Okay, clear to everyone? Now, as I said, we will re-refer to this deadlock deadlock avoidance algorithm, that is Banker's algorithm, one more time after completion of the example. Now it will be more clear to you all, right? So there are 4 steps. First is initialization. In second step, we will identify that process whose execution is not yet done and whose need is less than available. If both the conditions are true, we will take that process for execution. After completion of execution of that particular process, we will update the available matrix, and we will update the status of that particular process as finish of that I is equal to true, indicating it has completed its execution. And the last step is, if we will check if finish of I for all the processes is true, that means all the processes have executed completely, and it indicates that system is in a safe state. That means we can execute the processes in that sequence so as to avoid the error. Clear to all? Now, as we have mentioned, there are three approaches, three methods of handling the deadlock. Which are those? One is deadlock prevention, that is by making any of the four conditions false, we can prevent the deadlock, right? Deadlock avoidance, by using the Banker's algorithm, we can avoid the deadlock. And third is deadlock detection and recovery. If anyhow your system has there occurred a deadlock in your system, you have to detect at what point the deadlock is there, and you have to recover from that deadlock so that the system's performance will not be reduced. Okay. Now, for detection of deadlock, there are two methods, or the systems are of two types, in which we can there are different types of systems, and hence we need to follow different types of approaches, different types of methods to detect the deadlock. Let us assume the system in which all the resources are having the single instance. Okay. Now we know that the resource allocation graph we will use for representing how the processes are requesting and occupying the resources. Okay. Now, how to detect where there is a deadlock in the system? That we will detect with the help of resource allocation graph. We will represent it. Now, as we have already discussed, that all the processes are represented in the circle, or all the resources are represented in the squares. Number of instances are dots present in that square, but here we will be assuming only one resource, one instance of each resource. That's why there no dot is present in any of the square. Okay. Now, this resource allocation graph will be converted to wait for graph. How that we will see. Now, just observe, this is process P1. It needs the resource R1. It is requesting for resource R1, but R1 is occupied with the P2. That means process P1 is dependent on process P2 for this resource R1. This dependency can be shown directly by drawing the arrow from P1 to P2 as shown in this wait for graph. Okay, here process P1 is dependent on P2 because process P1 is requesting R1, which is held by P2. Okay. Now, such kind of dependencies will be shown in the wait for graph. Now, this dependency is shown for R1. Now, process P2 is requesting for resource R3, but it is held by process P5. This dependency is shown by this arrow from process P2 to P5. Then process P2 is requesting for resource R4, and R4 is utilized by the process P3. That means P2 is also dependent on P3. So process P2 is dependent on P5 as well as P3. Similarly, process P2 is requesting for resource R5, and this R5 is already allocated to the process P4. That means process P2 is dependent on process P4. So this dependency is shown by this particular app. Then process P4 is requesting for resource R2, and it is allocated to the process. So this dependency is shown by this. Okay. Now this resource allocation graph, which we can easily draw, that will be converted to this wait for graph. And now in this wait for graph, we will check for whether there exists any cycle or not. If there exists any directional cycle present in that wait for graph, we say there, there exists the deadlock in that cycle. Okay, so let us identify where there is a cycle present in this wait for graph. See P2, P3, P4, and there is no arrow here in this part. There is no cycle. We will check here. P1 is dependent on P2, which is dependent on P4, and it is dependent on P1 again. So these three processes forms a cycle. It means there exists the deadlock in these three because of these three processes dependency. Okay, we will check P1, P2, P3, and P4. They are also forming another cycle. That means is another cycle in which the process goes into deadlock. Okay, so we will break this cycle by stopping execution of any of the processes out of those which are there in that cycle. Okay, and we can allow the rest of the processes to execute properly. This way, we can detect the deadlock in those systems in which number of resources, number of instances of each resource are only. Okay, so a resource allocation graph is converted into wait for graph, and that wait for graph, if it is having the cycle, then that cycle will be broken and we will recover from the deadlock. Clear? Now, another approach. If we have multiple instances of the resources, right, then what to do? Then wait for graph will not help us to detect the deadlock. Okay. Therefore, the similar algorithm like the Banker's algorithm can be used to detect the deadlock in such kind of system where number of instances of each resource type are more. Okay. So what is how we can use the algorithm like Banker's algorithm for that purpose? The first three steps of Banker's algorithm we will keep as it is, and the fourth step will be changed as if finish of I is equal to false for any of the I present in that system. For any of the process, if finish of I is not true, then we say the system is in the deadlock. Okay, so this way we can detect the deadlock present in the system. And we will see, can observe the exactly same algorithm is there. This is not Banker's algorithm, or we will say Banker's algorithm for identifying safe state is different, and Banker's algorithm for identifying or detecting the deadlock is the another one. Okay, so first three steps are exactly same, and in fourth step, instead of finish of I is equal to true for all the processes, here we made the change as finish of I is equal to false for some of the process I, then we say system is in the deadlock. This way we can detect the deadlock, and where there is a deadlock, we will control that deadlock. Okay. So these are some questions which can be asked on this topic, and here we will stop our lecture. Thank you all.